Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Community Services Committee meeting of Tuesday, July 25th, 2023 to order. Niagara Region and Grimsby are situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattawandrock, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Regional Municipality of Niagara and the Town of Grimsby stands with all Indigenous peoples, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest? No, seeing none. We will move to the approval of the agenda. The Deputy Clerk has some changes to the agenda.
Through you, Chair, just a couple of changes. The motion and report DCS 2325 regarding the Department of National Defense meeting. The original one was published in error. The correct motion has since been, or the correct resolution has since been added to that report and included in our revised agenda. As well, there has been a notice of motion brought forward that will be read under other business to be considered at the next community services meeting.
Can I please get a mover and seconder to approve the amended agenda? Okay, moved by Councillor DeFlavio, seconded by Councillor Howe. All in favor?
Oh, sorry, you have to read your resolution.
Oh, sorry, yes. Resolved that the July 25th, 2023 Community Services Committee agenda be approved as amended. All in favor? Carried. Great. Moving on to item number 5, receipt of previous minutes. 5.1 Community Services Committee, June 22nd, 2023. 5.2 Age Friendly Advisory Committee, June 26th, 2023 and July 18th, 2023. 5.3 Culture Advisory Committee, July 6th, 2023. 5.4 Grimsby Green Advisory Committee, June 21st, 2023 and July 19th, 2023. Can I please get a mover and seconder to approve the previous minutes for the committees? Okay, moved by...
Sorry, that was supposed to say receive. To receive the previous minutes.
Can I please get a mover and a seconder to receive the previous minutes for the committees? Yes, moved by Member Laird and seconded by Member Bennett. Resolved that the following minutes be received. Community Services Committee, June 22nd, 2023. Age Friendly Advisory Committee, June 26th, 2023 and July 18th, 2023. Culture Advisory Committee, July 6th, 2023 and Grimsby Green Advisory Committee, June 21st, 2023 and July 19th, 2023. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. Moving on to item 6. Delegations, George Trifanovic. We have a delegation from George Trifanovic. Mr. Trifanovic, if you want to head over to the podium. Great, thank you.
And we have the presentation that we're going to put on the screen, I guess. And this regards the Recreational Trails Master Plan. And the first slide that we're going to look at is the map. Right, so basically what we're looking at is the Livingston Avenue unopened road allowance. It goes from Emily Street and just goes westbound and it comes out at Oaks. And that's been set up since by the region. They've owned that land since early 1970s, as we'll see. And so the region has recently funded and improved an environmental assessment for the Livingston Avenue unopened road allowance. It has been completed by Dillon Consulting, and it can be found on the Region of Niagara home webpage. The first phase of the EA, which is namely the Casablanca improvement portion, if you can go, sorry, to the second slide, it's been scheduled. It was supposed to be scheduled to start this fall, but I'm not sure if that's really going to happen this fall. It may happen next spring. And so basically, it's going to improve the Livingston Avenue extension. It's going to improve the access to the Queenie, all the ramps. And it's also going to extend Livingston Avenue from Casablanca and along Emily and westward to the back of the parking lot to the woodlot. And so that's going to be the first phase of that improvement. So so if you look at the draft map from the previous one, that map was presented on June 22nd at the meeting, the Community Services Standing Committee meeting by the Rec Department. To our knowledge, this was the first time this map was presented on the Town of Grimsby website or to the public. It was also the only map presented that ever showed a rec trail on the Livingston Avenue west of Casablanca. You know, and such an immediate change released in a proposed trail map is completely unfair. We contacted our neighbors that are also affected by this proposal, and none of them that we were able to actually contact were aware of them. Some of them we don't really know who they are, but we've reached out to the ones that we could, and they were not aware that there was this proposal in place. So really, and that map that you see showing that they call it a major trail, major spine trail, the first time it was ever shown to be on the Livingston Avenue unopened road allowance was on that meeting in the agenda from June 22nd, 2023. So number 6 on slide number 4. We were never aware of the proposed mapping on the unopened road allowance, and our neighbors affected were not aware. In fact, we were never aware there was a proposed new trail master plan. We did not participate in any of the consultation meetings as a result. My understanding is that this plan had been in progress for a year or two. We had no clue that it was going on. We had no idea, and none of our neighbors that we've been able to contact were aware of this either. And this was the second time that they have made an attempt to use that unopened road allowance. In 2017, they made a proposal to use it for a trail, and we brought up our concerns at that time. And basically, it would be landlocking portions of land between the rec trail and the rail tracks, affecting accessibility by property owners to their own land. So basically, the property that we own is going to have a north part that'll be basically sandwiched between the rail tracks and a trail. And we will have no way to access that back portion of our property without either going over the tracks or over the trail. We are also concerned about public safety along the trail, and we're also concerned about insurance and liability issues. This trail will go behind some of our neighbors' homes, and just property and items that are within visual distance of the trail might be subject to vandalism. We have no problem with the trail if it's mapped and built, but our request is that we wait for the unopened road allowance of the Livingston Avenue to be completed. It's in the plans, they're going to complete it, and we're going to look at a little map on the environmental assessment that shows how that Livingston Avenue completed road is going to look like, and it includes bike lanes, it includes for automobiles, it includes a pedestrian walkway, and it includes a walkway. And in addition to once that is completed, in the meantime, the existing Main Street West corridor has sidewalks, it has paved shoulders, It currently provides safe and accessible road for pedestrians and cyclists as shown in the slide, and we're going to see that on the next slide. This is in addition to other available corridors and trails such as the Bruce Trail, the Waterfront Trail, the Beamer Trail. We have many trails. It's not like we're short of trails. So our request is to hold back on building that trail and subjecting our property being landlocked. We're all for trails. We love trails. We use them regularly, but we don't want our land to be landlocked. And the council meeting in 2017 agreed with us, and they stopped that from happening. And if we look at the next slide, number 6, we see this is from the environmental assessment, how they're going to manage this, how they mitigate it. They're going to have those on the sides, they have for drainage, they have roads, they have places for bikes, they have places for pedestrians to walk. So it will be completed, it will be there, and in its completion, in addition to being just north of Main Street West, which is another corridor, which is very effective, or is probably even more, lovely in terms of looking at the escarpment and things like that. So we were kind of wondering why put this trail there. There's Hunter Road, there's ditches that would have to be somehow gotten over in terms of, putting bridges or culverts or whatever is necessary to get over, and and just our disruption to our property itself in terms of getting from one end to the other, as will be affected other neighbors as well. So the bottom line from our standpoint is the new proposed mapping on the RTMP, the Recreational Trail Master Plan, on the unopened road allowance of the Livingston Avenue should not move forward. And we're not saying that it should never move forward. We say it shouldn't move forward before it's built. And it's right at this time, it's to be determined exactly when that will happen. But they're looking at the next, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it's going to be before it gets built, as an add-on to what's being built for the Casablanca improvement. So it will be impossible for landowners to safely move farm equipment to portions of their own properties. It subjects private and public properties to access from public persons that may have intent to vandalize. It will subject the region, town, and private landowners to liability and insurance expenses. Proper notification to landowners who are affected by the Rec Trail Master Plan so they can voice their concern and provide consultation must be addressed and documented in a public review before it is brought to council to vote. Because we never had a chance to say anything, to see if there's any mitigating factors that we can use. We feel left out in the cold on this, not knowing. The Grimsby Town Public Works Committee meeting on August 16, 2017, the following detailed discussion points of opposition, and that's what I talked about earlier, 6, 7 years ago, whatever it was when we had that meeting to talk about, stopping it. And the Grimsby Town Council at that time rightfully voted not to use the Livingston Avenue unopened road allowance as a trail, and the presentation discussion points that were brought up by the community are listed below. And now some of it is a little bit repetitive of what I've just talked about. But if we have a road the Livingston as mapped in the environmental assessment, we'll have a road, it'll be accessible, it'll be lighted, it'll have the proper drainage, it'll have sidewalks, it'll be accessible by first responders. Right, so that's, I'm just going to skip this one. B, that's slide 10. We kind of talked about this, about littering and vandalism, and this is going to be subject to the people that live along that trail. And from our standpoint, we're going to have it on both sides. we feel a properly completed Livingston Avenue, an open road allowance, like once that extension road allowance is completed, it's the only safe option, and there will be no more challenge, in terms of, like this was back from 2017, to allow, if we have to move equipment or do anything, we can use the road as we use Highway number 8 today, or Main Street West. So it's our feeling at that time, we expressed our opinion to leave it, to not use it as a trail, and as well, and at that time, the council agreed with us, and they said, no, it's not fair to the homeowners and the property owners that live along there. So I'm going to skip slide 12. It's somewhat a little bit repetitive, but it just makes our point and our frustration, so that you understand the impact that this is going to have on our operations and our private property, and in general, it's we really want to drive that point home to you, that it does affect us, and we want it not to happen, and we are now expressing ourselves because pretty late in the game as far as we're concerned, and so we just want to get that point across to you. And now I'm on slides 13. Yeah, and we are going to have a segment of our property, which is about 15 acres. That's going to be on one side, we got a neighbor that has some land. We're going to have a trail. He's on the east side. On the west side, we have the Smith School and the soccer fields. And then on the north side, there's a rail train tracks, and on the south side, there's going to be a trail. Like, how are we supposed to get in there? Are we going to have to ask our neighbor? Are we going to have to go through the school? How is that going to happen? And so what we're saying is use the other trails. It's not like this is going to be shut out forever. It's only a matter of time before they complete that portion and the issue goes away. There's going to be things like insurance. There's going to be not just for the homeowners, but also for the town of Grimsby and also for the region. If somebody gets injured or somebody is, has some issues, and I think at the last meeting, the issue of safety for the pedestrians, there's no lighting in that area. So, how is that going to be, managed if somebody is injured in some way, in terms of either through some kind of vandal or act that way, or just in general, slipping and falling. Because I'm not sure what the plan is to put, aggregates, or how they're going to manage putting a trail through there, or what they're going to do. There hasn't been really talk about that. Right, and so if we're, taking farm equipment across or doing things, and we have to drive over this trail, or we're spraying insecticides or herbicides and things like that, how is that going to impact the community or the people that are on there? So the questions that we have is, the region owns this property. Now Grimsby is using it, or as part of their trail system. There's 8 trails that exist in Grimsby prior to this. So, what is the region's? We've been in contact with our regional councillor to get some feedback from the region in terms of what is their thoughts on all of this. And also from the planning departments, we haven't really heard anything from the Grimsby Planning Department or the regional planning department in terms of how this trail what impacts it's going to have on their, future plans. So in summary, we were never notified. This is a pretty significant proposal that has been made. We've never been notified by Canada Post. Sometimes we get things in the mail when things happen in the community that might affect us. For this one, which is probably the most, intrusive one, we never received mail. We didn't see anything in the newspapers. We read the newspapers, the Grimsby local ones, very frequently, and we try to keep on top of all this. We never knew this. Somebody just happened to notice it in one of the meeting agenda and said, what's this all about? So then when we followed up, that's what we found out. We did engage the rec department. We did have a meeting with them. But even at that time, there was really no suggestion that the unopened road allowance that's Livingston Avenue would be used as a trail. They talked about going along the train tracks or something of that nature, but our CN didn't buy into that. So, it just seems to be, I'm not sure how they ended up deciding to do that, and then calling it a major spine trail, like it's going to be the major component in the entirety of Grimsby as a trail, and it's for us to have that, and I'm going to use the word inflicted upon us, but it does have a very, very serious concern to our operations and our property, and to not even be aware of it, we put forward our request to you, to the Grimsby Council, to not allow this to be used as a trail until the Livingston Avenue is completed. Then we're happy. There will be, for the entire community, a very useful trail or pedestrian ways, bike paths, everything is there. In terms of there's been an environmental assessment done by the region. So in terms of, the drainage or whatever, that's going to be a part of it, has all been mitigated. Everything's been looked after. Culverts, everything that is necessary will be in place. So that's our feeling, is we should wait for that. And so that's we have many other excellent alternative routes. In the meantime, right now, Main Street West is used, and it's being used quite readily and happily without an incident or issue. So if you want to look at a trail that's, closer, like almost literally a stone's throw from Highway number 8. So that's our presentation. We hope you take our concerns to heart and understand that we are all for trails. We love our trails. We love our waterfront trail. We love the Bruce Trail. We use them regularly. We understand the usefulness to the community, but we hope that you understand our position. And we're not saying never. We're saying just wait until the unopened road access is built. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trifanovic, for your presentation. If you just actually want to stay at the podium, we'll get some questions. Do we have any committee members with any questions? Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, it's actually more of a, because I just wanted to talk about the idea. Mr. Trifunovic, the point of a master plan, okay, and you actually mentioned the regional master plan, transportation master plan, and the completion of Livingston Avenue and the improvements to Casablanca. That was done in 2017, and it still hasn't been constructed.
2020.
2017.
2021, the EA, or sorry.
Well, no, but the master plan was, just, let me finish.
Okay, sorry.
So the master plan was completed in 2017. Still, we haven't seen any construction on Livingston Avenue. We won't, it's not even in the works. Casablanca was supposed to be done this year. It was actually supposed to be done a couple of years ago. It was supposed to be done 10 years before that. Still hasn't been done. A master plan looks at what needs to be done and what connections need to be made. And this trail, putting it on the master plan, I just want to make it clear to you, does not mean that it's going to be built tomorrow. It means that it's part of the plan. So that Livingston Road completion that you're talking about, when that gets done, we want to make sure that there is a trail adjacent to it. So that the trail runs parallel to that, so that it's a complete road, that it's a road that bikes and runners and walkers can use as well. If we don't keep this on the map, then it's not part of the plan. So I just want to make it clear that putting it on the map does not mean it's going to get built tomorrow. It means, because even if it were to get built, our recreation staff would have to come back with a budget, okay? So they'd have to come back through this committee with a budget that says, these are the things we want to build this year. The trail is one of those things. It's going to cost X number of $1 million, because it will. Because as you said, that you're going to need to change the elevation, deal with drainage, change the import aggregate, import soil. It's a huge project. It's not going to be done. Putting this on the map does not mean that it's going to be something that's going to be constructed overnight. I just want to make that clear. It does need to be on the map, though, because it's part of a master plan. So I want to alleviate your concerns, because I share your concerns, you know, and I will continue to advocate for what you're talking about, because I think completing Livingston Road is a very important part of our Town of Grimsby Transportation Master Plan. But this, as a recreational trails master plan, has to include that trail. So I agree with all of the things that you said, except for not putting on the map, because it does need to be on the map. Again, that doesn't mean that it's going to be built. It means that it could be built in the future, but it means that we recognize the fact that that is an important part of any connection in Grimsby, and it is, from east to west. I think that furthers, I think that including this on the map doesn't hinder what you want to do. I think it furthers it. It says that this is the logical place for a roadway to go through, for a trailway to go through, for sidewalks to go through, because that's what it was always intended to be. People call it a Livingston Road extension. It's not an extension. It's a completion. Livingston Road was always intended to go through there. That has been on the map since I was born. In 1971, that was on the map, or 73, I think it was on the map. It was put on the map. A long time, 50 years. So this trail on this map does not hinder you in any way. I could tell you that if it comes to building that trail, that I will bring up all those concerns that you've brought up as your counselor, and I will continue to advocate for you, but I don't think it will, because it's not one of our priorities. It's not, we're looking as a committee and as a town for the low-hanging fruit on this plan. What can we do quickly to start to connect these roadways? What can we do quickly to start to connect these paths? That's not a quick project. That's several months of construction, and as I said, importing soil and aggregate, and it's a massive construction project. It doesn't make any sense for us to build that. But it also doesn't make any sense for us to leave that off the map, if you understand what I'm saying to you, okay? So I agree with your presentation. I hear what you're saying, but I am going to advocate to have this on the map, because I think it's important that is part of whatever we build in the future.
And to respond to that, and that's fine, and like we said, we are all for a trail after the Livingston Avenue is completed. So then, on the map, that shouldn't be in the legend, there should be in the proposal, and it should be contingent upon the completion of the road. They should go hand in hand together. It should not be, because when you look at that map, and I'm not sure if we can read it, but when you look at that map, slide number 2, I don't know if you can bring that back very easily, but it's in the legend, and it says major spine trail, and it's not in any proposal. It's hard to read this map, but I don't know if I'm not sure I can read it because I got it printed in black and white here, but I can tell you what it says. The legend shows. It says proposed trail intents, major trail spine. So in that category, it should be some kind of tie-in that will only happen when the Livingston Avenue extension is completed. That would be my argument, and if that was somehow put into the discussion point or in the actual master plan to tie them together, then that might be something that we could talk about, but they have to go together because the point about landlocking cannot just go away. That's a major issue. Like, what do we do if somebody comes along and says, we're going to build a trail? How are we going to get to the north side of our property? Do we have to go ask our neighbors? Do we have to go through the school and the soccer field? Yeah, so I can hand it back, whatever.
Councillor DeFlavio, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think that, I understand your concerns, again, but if it were built, and I don't think it will be built as a trail. I can tell you, I don't think it would be built. But if it were built, it would be an aggregate trail that any equipment, you still have to cross a road allowance now. So it doesn't, these kinds of trails exist all over Ontario, all over the world. If you go in Stony Creek on the mountain, the DeFasco Trail divides parcels of private land all over the place, okay? It's not uncommon for these types of trails to divide land like this, because your land is divided by a road allowance. It's not, you have to cross a road allowance every time you go from one side of the land to the other. That's just the reality. I have land like that too, where there's a road allowance through there. You use it like it's your own land, you cut the grass like it's your own land, you plant the crops in it like it's your own land, but it's not, right? I mean, we all understand that, you understand that, that's why you're concerned about it. It's never gonna be a fenced trail, no matter what goes in there, so you're gonna have access to both sides. But again, if that trail were to be built, then what I would say is, we put wording into the document that says, any completion of that trail involves the input from landowners in that area, because that wasn't part of this stage, because this is a master plan. It's kind of an overall, looking at the whole town. When we get to the specifics, I agree with you. We need to consult every landowner, not just you, your neighboring landowners as well, because it's important that we include everybody in that discussion. And then those concerns will become genuine concerns. I would not support it if it does what you're saying and if it divides the land. You know the elevation of the land there as well, and better than I do. I walked through there as a kid. I used to go pick wild plants back there with my dog, walking through the back of that field. Probably, I don't know how long you've owned it, but in the springtime, I'd walk along the railway line at the back of that property. The elevation is not such that if you put a trail in, it wouldn't negatively impact everything. You're gonna get ponding, you're gonna get all kinds of problems. The only way that trail ever gets built, like I said, is if the road gets built, because otherwise you're gonna have to bring in so much soil to connect that trail, to make it work, that it's never gonna be a logical connection. So I agree with what you're saying. Again, if it means making it part of Livingston Avenue, that's fine. Sorry, that's my notification. I got an ICQ message from 1996. But it is important that we include it. You talked about it being part of this major spine. Remember, when you look at the map, the major spine includes all of Livingston that's already constructed, right? It's on roadways. It's not just that. So major spine means that it's part of a very important part of the network. In my mind, that also means it's an important part of completing the transportation for the roadway in that part. Okay. Anyway, I've gone on enough.
Follow up to that, like, in our opinion, we feel very strongly they have to be tied together somehow. In terms of the environmental assessment that's been done, it has to follow those rules. And and you said it won't be completed, they won't do the trail before the road is completed. Maybe, who knows? 5 years from now, things may change. 4 years from now, if they're still waiting for the completion of the Livingston Avenue, and somebody decides they want to build a trail, and how that trail is going to look like, or what have you, we have no control over that. So that's why we would like it just to say that this will be a, future thing, or if you want to, but the tie-in has to be with completion, because when you look at that one slide that was shown, it shows that they have the lanes of highway, it has bicycle lanes, and it has a pedestrian access. So it has everything that a trail could ask for. So, and we're talking about Main Street West, which is right there, that you can just loop up along Main Street and go across that area without impacting that, without incurring the costs of putting aggregates or whatever, or disrupting the operations, and having heavy machinery and children and pets and stuff like that all intermixed on a trail in the middle of a field is probably not the best option, in my opinion. And I think that is very deserves merit. And then the council in 2017, when that was introduced, they said no. And the reason they voted no was because it was not a good idea, and it was imposing some intrusion onto our property or properties of our neighbors that was unacceptable. And they recognized that, and they stopped it. And we're not saying stop it, because we can see that it's in the EA. So let it happen that way. That's our position.
Do we have any other questions? Member Breather?
Yep. First, just thanks again for coming out and talking. So one thing I just wanted to point out with the map that's been being shared, I believe that's one of about 5 or 6 maps that was actually put together for the actual master plan. On the other maps, it actually indicates what type of, I guess, trail is going to be put in there. I believe for that section, the plan is actually designated as a multi-use, which, as you indicated, will have walking, biking, and actual traffic on it. So I think whether it's explicitly stated in the plan, I'm not certain, but I do know that that section is at least planned to have that multi-use designation, as you mentioned. And it also does, from a priority standpoint, need, I believe, regional input, as you mentioned. So I think Councilor DeFlavio mentioned that we do have ones that we're trying to get as quick fixes. Then we have medium and long-term plans as well. So this would be one that would probably be on that longer term due to that regional input as well.
Yes, go ahead.
If there's 4 or 5 maps, like the master plan for the rec department, there was one done in March 2019. And Chapter 8 in that master plan, it's called the Parks, Recreation, Culture Master Plan. Chapter 8 talks about trails. And that master plan was drafted by MHBC, Raymond Consulting, TCI Management Consultants, and they put out a listing of all the trails: the Bruce Trail, the 40 Mile Creek Side Trail, the Waterfront Trail, the Southward Community Park Trail, the Beamer Memorial Trail, the Casablanca Beach Park Waterfront Trail, and as Nick had mentioned, it feeds into the Dofasco Trail on the one side. So there are trails, and we want to continue with the trails, but we have to, like, if there's 5 maps, like, I don't know which, like, this was the map that we found in the agenda on June the 22nd just passed. We never knew it existed before. We had no clue. Like, and prior to that, we've never seen a trail ever mapped on an open road access of the Livingston Avenue. So we just find it, trying to find these maps, finding out how they're mapped or why they're mapped, whether they're proposals, whether they're, nothing is, to us, we don't feel comfortable knowing what this plan is all about. And we know what it's about, but we don't know how they're going to finalize this mapping as our issue. And we don't want our land to be divided so we get landlocked. And there's other neighbors that will share some of the issues and concerns that were brought forward, and nobody knew about it. So we'd like to share our thoughts with you, with the creators of this master plan, and we'd like to ensure that everything is tied together properly, and the EA that the region has completed becomes the forerunner or the impetus for the creation of that trail. And I don't think anybody has an issue with that. And that's it for that.
Thank you. We have two of our staff members here. I'm just wondering, Trevor, if you could possibly chime in and just give maybe next steps or where to go from here?
Yes, through you, Chair. I'm not super familiar on the recreational trails plan, but I'll give you my understanding. I think maybe where we're at is we're thinking we're at a stage further along than we actually are. Master planning is very exploratory and it identifies possibilities. I think in the event that staff wanted to action the project, there would be a budget commitment, there would be a council commitment. A lot of the consultation and concerns that you've listed would come up through feasibility planning in the event that that type of concept were to move forward. We're just not at that stage. This is very, very preliminary. It's just identifying what could be possible. So I think your concerns are valid. I just don't think this is the stage of the process where we would be looking at that level. I think Councillor Flavio did a good job of kind of laying that out. But anything further, I'd have to refer back to the Parks team staff.
Sorry, Trevor, can you just expand on where the residents would get more information so that they are aware of what's coming next?
Through the chair, so just in the context of other projects we've worked on, in the event that there was a feasibility planning, and that would be somewhere where we have a budget commitment, that would be where you would have that type of opportunity. On a plan of this scale, we would be consulting residents directly for all of the trails. It's such a wide scope. It's very holistic. So the engagement that was done for the trail was very much Grimsby wide. And the reason you didn't receive a letter in your mailbox is because we weren't targeting people along the trails. We're targeting the Grimsby community as a whole for their input to flow into the master plan. In the event a trail were to move forward, or a proposal of a trail to move forward and receive budget commitment from council, that's when you'd be looking at, okay, if it's a specific trail, what's the impact, what's the feasibility, and then that type of engagement would take place.
Thank you, Trevor. Councillor Howe?
Excuse me. I wouldn't be thinking about getting too far ahead because there's a couple of things that are happening. Number one, that DeSantis property there down the way is really going to impact Hunter and Oak, and they're going to have to do a lot of work with that. So a lot of things will are going to be very in flux, very fluid, and it's going to be apt to change. We can't put it down in pen. It'll have to be in a very light pencil. So we've got that. We're also going to be doing a transportation master plan. Starting, I think we're going to put it out this fall, and then hopefully we get it going next year, which is all the roadway, and we'll be able to rehash all the roads. So there's going to be a kick at the cat for you there when that comes, because nothing's going to happen prior to that.
Never seen that.
No.
Like, when is these, like, if we wanted to see this transportation master plan, if we wanted to see this proposal, you mentioned something about DeSantis, if we wanted to see documentation, like, so we can read about it, keep up to date on things, like, in terms of putting notifications in the newspaper to let us know about these, this master, okay, it's Grimsby wide, it's not just the residents of the Livingston Avenue open or unopened road allowance that's for ready completion, it's for entire Grimsby. But we checked the newspapers, we've never seen a notification about there being a pick or something like that. And I imagine they must have happened, but we didn't know and we didn't go. We could have, brought up some of our points or concerns that we had then. But if we don't know, we're coming in at the 9th hour now. And we're late to understand. And when, as far as this master trail, because we already have the one that I mentioned in 2019, they had Chapter 8 having the trail, where they listed all the trails and they talk about them. So now we're going to have, and this one was up with parks and it had to do with all other kinds of cultural and other things. So I imagine this new plan or master plan, is it going to supersede the one that was from 2019? Is it just for Chapter 8? Or, things like that, like we don't know or understand, and why, are they going to update the master plan for the Parks Recreation Culture master plan that was done in 2019? Does that get a whole rewrite, and or they just pull Chapter out and say, never mind Chapter 8, we're going to go now over to this new rec trails master plan that's going to be part of it? Or like how is that all going to fit together? Like, what do we use? I was kind of, when we were trying to investigate finding stuff out about this, I was reading this one from searching, and I would find stuff from this document from 2019. Then I would see stuff from 2023, and I didn't know which one was from where, because you would just, when you do a search, you get maybe a slide or something. So I'm sitting there confused, trying to understand what's all going on. But there's no reference to this document, the 2019
Sorry,
document.
I just wanted to clarify a few things, and I think Councillor DeFlavio had a question, had a comment as well, but he'll answer. But I just wanted to clarify that not all your information should be coming from the newspaper. A lot of the information that you're looking for is on the town website. So we don't necessarily put everything out in the paper because it might not be a requirement and it's obviously very costly. So if you're looking for stuff, I would definitely go to our Town of Grimsby website. And also, Let's Talk Grimsby. That's our new platform that has, community engagement. So I'm just letting you know, so that's, because I've been there, I wasn't on council before, so I was always having to find information myself, and that's where I would find it. So Councillor DeFlavio, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just want to clarify a few things. So Mr. Trifunovic keeps talking about the Recreation and Culture Master Plan, I think it was called, or the Parks Recreation and Culture Master Plan, which we completed in 2018. This is actually part of that. This is the next step of that in my mind, because what that does is it looks at all the things we have in town, the parks that we have in town, the recreation that we provide, all those things as a whole. Then within that, one of the things that we do is we provide trails. So now we have to identify what the trail system is within the town of Grimsby. Another thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to have to look at all of these little parks that we have and all the parcels of land that we have all over town and say, are these ones that we want to keep as a baseball diamond, or do we want to turn it into a park where kids can play? That's another part of the process, right? So what you're talking about is not different from, it's It was it was even more general than this one. It was looking at parks, recreation, all the things that we provide from the town of Grimsby and saying, what do we need? Do we need more pickleball courts, volleyball courts, basketball courts? Do we need more hockey arenas? Do we need more trails? All that stuff. And trails were identified as a need in that study in 2018. So moving forward, we're doing this because now we're trying to connect these trails and make Grimsby an active community, because that's one of the things that we identified back in 2018 as being important. The process started, so you talked about it not having the ability to participate. Part of the problem was, of course, and I wasn't part of the council at that time, but in defense of the people who were around at that time, it was in 2021 early during COVID days that all this stuff was going on. So everything was online. So there were meetings, but they were like, you dial into a Zoom and you put in your input, but it wasn't like the traditional ones where you come in and there's panels up with ideas and you put up Post-it notes. We've had those in the past, and that's probably what you're used to, and that's hopefully where we're going to go in the future, and that's what will come in the next stage, again, when we're dealing with this in the future. But it wasn't something that could have been done at that time because you just couldn't do it, I think, in defense of the people who ran this. They put a lot of work into it, and I think they did a really good job. I think they missed something which I'm going to talk about under new business, no spoilers, but it was 2021 that they were doing this, and I think that we all recognize that 2021 was not the ideal time to be having public meetings. Maybe not the best time to do it, but I respect the fact that they're trying to get it done and get it moving and get something going on this. It's something that we've been trying to do for 10 or 15 years at least. So let's get this master plan approved just as a general thing, okay? I know that I respectfully disagree with your opinion on it, and I agree with most of what you're saying. It's just, let's get this master plan done and move to the next stage. When we actually, if we ever actually build the trail, I can assure you, and we can write it into the master plan, that people be consulted, that we put extensive consultation if any new trails are built, for example. Okay? I think that that's important. I agree with you. So, let's get that written into the wording. That's fine, and I think we can convey that to staff. But not putting it on the map, I think, is a no-go, in my opinion.
Say it's contingent on the Livingston Avenue completion.
Member Bennett?
Just to clarify, I agree with your final comments, because it sounds like you're just looking for assurances and guarantees that you won't be landlocked and these things will happen. And from what I'm hearing, it sounds like that's part of the normal procedure and protocols to consult with the public and to get your voice heard. But I think you're looking for some assurances that will happen, and I think Councillor DeFlavio is going to address that. Is that correct?
The further this goes down the road or down the path or process, the harder it's going to be to come to undo it. And we just feel we'll get railroaded. They're just going to say, this is the plan, and then we're going to make our voices heard, and then they'll say, well, too bad, it's been approved. It's been done. Your property is now landlocked.
It just sounds like the town has certain protocols and procedures they have to follow, and you will be heard. But I think what Councillor DeFlavio said about putting in that contingency and guarantee, that might help alleviate some of the concerns.
If there's a guarantee, then that's something we'd have to examine and look at. This is the first, this has been only a few weeks since we even knew that they were going to landlock us. And that's a serious thing. You think about if your property, if your backyard, you got cut in half, and you'd have to go to your neighbor to ask to go into your own backyard. It's not.
I completely agree with your concerns. I just want to make sure that, the town does have things in place that, I don't know if that was the intent of the town, but I do know it's important to voice, and it's important, and I think all your concerns are highly valid. And I think, I put up my hand before Councillor DeFlavio added the last bit, but I think if it's put in and we can guarantee some assurances of different protocols to follow and those contingency, I think it will be good. Yeah.
Part of that too.
Yeah.
It should be, like you said, a guarantee that it's the understanding that this will only be completed along once the road is completed. We're good with that. We're great. We're happy. We think it's great. We love trails. Don't get us wrong. We just don't want to have our neighbors landlocked. That's more than just a concern or an issue. That's a very serious item, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. It shouldn't be just like, oh, we'll worry about it later. People retire from council. People win $1 million and go to Jamaica or something or wherever. So they're not here to drive the points home anymore. So the new council, when they come in, what do they know? They just say, hey, this has been approved. Boom, let's do it. So that's why we'd like the region in there, and we'd like to have something, positive and something to say in the interim before a trail, this major spine is put through this Livingston Avenue completion, that Main Street West will be used in the interim as the spine until that time, which is perfectly valid and works perfectly well. And saves taxpayers money, because it's already there.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to conclude here, because I think we've kind of answered lots of questions. We've had lots of discussion back and forth. So the positive is that, I think we all know where everybody kind of is. We have a record, so we have this video as well. You have 3 council members who've been here and can come back and forth when this topic does come up, and we can, adequately convey your message. I would suggest, if you could, make sure that you have this on record with the consultant so that they have, they can also communicate with you if they have questions as well, right? Trevor, so that would be through, if you could possibly let us know where they can email or contact.
Through the chair, I am unsure of where we are in this process. I'm not involved in this portfolio directly, so I think what I'd like to do is take this back to the team, to our parks manager and Sarah, and just provide whatever avenue you can best provide your feedback officially to the team, the staff team.
Send it to SEMA plus whatever.
Yes, that's the correct, yes.
Speak up,
Yes.
yeah.
I just want to make sure that you have it on record and that it's all going directly to them, so that's good. Perfect.
Plus, we include the rec director. We include one of her person that works in her office, I guess. So we include the mayor. We include our Ward 4 councillors, who's Nick, and Brad is included.
So we're all in the loop, yes.
We try to keep everybody in the loop
Yes.
at all points. And also with the region, we're trying to make inroads and to understand what do they know about this, and are they okay with it?
Perfect. So everybody is clear now. So I think we're just going to conclude and we're going to receive now. So can I get a mover and a seconder to receive the delegation? Okay, moved by Member Bennett, seconded by Councillor Howe. All in favor? Oh, sorry, yes, the resolution. I do this all the time. Resolved that the delegation from George Trifunovic be received. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. So thank you very much. I will give you the opportunity to leave now if you would like, unless you'd like to sit through another hour of the rest of our meeting. Thank you. I learned from last time. Okay, so we're going to move on to consent reports. Item number 7.1, DCS 2325, Department of National Defense meeting. So I have some questions, so I'd like to move it to discussion. Can I get a mover and a seconder to discuss this? Moved by Councillor DeFlavio, seconded by Member Breather. Okay. So yes, I was just hoping that we could just have a general dialogue about what happened. I know Councillor DeFlavio, you were there. I don't know, Trevor, were you there as well? So if I could just have a verbal update, that would be great.
Through the chair, I was not in attendance of that meeting. So Councillor DeFlavio, if you could speak to it, that'd be great.
Thank you. I knew you'd have a good summary. Wrap it up, though.
Okay, I'll try to keep it brief. We met with several members of the armed forces, including a few in person and some virtually, including people that manage their land. There was a lieutenant colonel, I think, that was in attendance. It was very nice of them to attend, and I was thoroughly impressed by their preparation and care. You know, we've never had an in-person meeting. We've had this discussion before, and we've never had them attend in person, so I was very thankful for that. They listened to our concerns. I expressed the fact that, you know, when that was built after World War II as a rifle range, it was built in a very rural area where there were no houses. There was, you know, like one house in the corner of Kerman and Winston Road, but there were really no houses down there. Actually, I don't think Winston Road even existed yet. It might have been built later on. But anyway, there was only one house down there, or a couple of houses. Now it's the most densely populated area in West Niagara, definitely, and definitely in Grimsby, is within a kilometer of this rifle range. So we wanted to make sure that they're aware of the construction that has occurred down there over the years, of the increased traffic at the marina next door, all those things, so that they're making decisions going forward based on, you know, on information rather than on history, because it's been there forever, and sometimes, you know, how government works, especially the federal government, it's very hard to change a ship that's going, a large ship, right? Change the direction. So they didn't promise us anything, because they've closed down, I think it's Petawawa, and they're rebuilding that rifle range, which is going to take a couple of years. They're actually expanding this rifle range rather than retracting. But what they're going to do is they're going to make sure that they have flag people on the beach when firing occurs, that they will notify the town so that the town could put it on social media that there will be firing between, you know, 8 a.m. and dusk on these days when it's occurring, so that way people are more aware. But that rifle range isn't going anywhere, was the point that they made pretty clear. It's an important part of their military infrastructure. They bring in soldiers from all over Ontario to train there, and they need the facility. And coming up with something like that, again, is very difficult. It's over open water, which is part of, I mean, besides the giant berm they have there, there's also kilometers and kilometers of open water, which make it a much safer place to fire a weapon. They gave a lot of explanations as to why that was put there in the first place. As much as I would like to see it become parkland, most of the residents I know that live down there have never really had an opposition to it. They kind of think it's cool when they see them come in. It's not used that often. It's used for a few weeks here and there throughout the year. I'd love for it to be park, but second best is a site that is closed, that has, you know, natural vegetation in the rear, has some reforestation happening. So it's not what we wanted. What we'd love is for them to say, we're going to shut it down, we're going to let you buy it and turn it into a park. That's not going to occur. But they were listening, and what I wanted to make clear, and I think we all made clear and staff made clear, was that they need to be aware that this area is going to continue to grow, that there's more density going into that area, more people are going to be living near there. So that needs to be taken into consideration when they make their decisions. It's not the middle of nowhere anymore, like it was when it was built. Right? In 1950, that was the middle of nowhere, but in 2023, we've got another couple of thousand units that were approved a few years ago down at the end of Casablanca. It's only going to get more populated. It's only going to become a busier road. So they're aware of that, but they're not changing their use, in summary. That was a lot longer than you probably wanted, sorry.
I appreciate that, thank you. So we didn't get that in the minutes, obviously. So that's why I asked you, because I knew you'd have, no, that was great. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate the fact that you and Councillor Bradsey took that initiative to go and speak and get that information, so that's great. Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. So, So resolved that report DCS 2325, Department of National Defense Meeting, amended report dated July 25th, 2023, be received for information. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Moving on to 8.1, DCS 2326, Community Services Department Information Update, July 2023. Next, we have the Community Services Department Information Update Report. Can I get a mover and a seconder to put this item on the floor for discussion? Is there anyone? Okay. Can I get a mover and seconder? Member Bennett and Member Breather to second it. Okay, Trevor, go ahead. Thank you.
Sure. Through the chair, I'll probably pass this back and forth between Krista and I as we go through. So playground installations are in progress, are supposed to be done by the end of the month. Gage Park and Dunrobin Park were the two installations being completed this year. Got a number of tree initiatives on the go, 2 billion trees. The MPCA restoration program in Centennial Park and TD Tree Days is planning to come back again this year at Southwood Park, which is great. Nellis Beach Park is having some challenges with the waterfront access due to high water levels. If you've noticed online, the beach is listed as closed by the Niagara region, and that's not necessarily due to water quality. It's actually safe access to the beach area. So that's an ongoing challenge. Casablanca Waterfront Park has started. I believe they mobilized on July 10th, 2023. I believe there was an incident with a garbage can that was fenced in by the contractor that I believe has been resolved. And I'm looking forward to that project continuing over the next few months. The Community Project Grant Program will be beginning its third intake this year. So this grant program is a small program of $2,500 small micro project grants, and looking forward to seeing what we get for this year. And we're actually looking at doing some alignment with the recently approved Community Development Grant Program. So now we'll have a bit more of a menu of opportunities for community organizations to benefit from for grant funding. Coronation Park is really coming together if you've had the opportunity to walk down there. The grass has taken really, really well. We've benefited from some wet days, which has been really great. There's some really nice new concrete pads and chairs and loungers that have been installed just yesterday. So if you have the opportunity to go down there, it's looking really great as that comes along. Movies in the park. We had our first movie night in the park on July 14th, which was this previous Friday. And yeah, we had a pretty good turnout. The first early ones are very tough because if you've got young kids, that 9 p.m. start is a little bit late. So we do tend to increase as dusk arrives earlier. We've got one coming up this Friday and another 3 scheduled over the rest of the summer. Grimsby Arts Walk, we had our not a kickoff meeting, but additional meeting a few weeks ago. The date is set for September 23rd, looking to collaborate with a number of community partners that we worked with last year to deliver that event in September. PKC expansion and renovation is plugging along. We are working through schematic design, and there should be some exciting information coming to committee in August. So everything I've brought to you so far has been a lot of diagrams and text, and I think it'll be a great opportunity to share some blocking and some renderings that'll really start to see how the project is coming to life. I'll also be talking about stakeholder engagement and capital campaign strategy at the next meeting. Filming in Grimsby. We are working with our largest production that we've ever worked with in town. It's called Dino Decks. It's a children's series, and it's not biggest in terms of scale, it's biggest in terms of longevity. So they're actually here for 4 months. If you've noticed in the back of the Peach King Center, there's a number of vehicles and trucks that are here, and they're actually using it as a staging area, but they've rented space on across from Willow Park. So it's been a great learning experience for us. We've kind of determined that our existing policies and procedures are insufficient to deal with the scale of a production of this size and the productions that we're seeing a lot of spillover from the Hamilton, Toronto film industry come into Grimsby. And we are going to be looking at, updating our policies and procedures to reflect that increase in demand over the next year or so. And I'll pass it back to Krista.
Thank you, Trevor. So just a little bit of an update in terms of inclusion in the town of Grimsby. I think it was mentioned at the last meeting in June that we did have an inclusion cafe on Tuesday, June the 20th, and that was at Southward Park. And just to provide you with a little bit more detail, so we had 22 community members plus town staff, we had members of council and our community facilitators. Several organizations were also on site that day. We had Parasport, Community Living, Special Olympics, the Niagara Children's Center, Tennis Club, and of course, town staff. And the main two objectives from that session were to really talk about what we were doing well as a community in terms of inclusion. And the second piece to that was what can we do to improve inclusion and access to town programs and services across our community. So not necessarily town programs, but the community as a whole. How can we ensure that there is inclusion? We had conversations around small tables. We had sort of a gallery walk where people put ideas and suggestions up on flip chart paper. So we had some really great, honest communication around that. And I think from that, we had a condensed list of strengths that we kind of took away, and we want to share that with everybody that was in attendance at that meeting. Some of those sort of on a high level were that we do have a Grimsby sledge hockey team, and that's going into its third season. Actually, Trevor and I had the opportunity to meet with Parasport today and have some further discussion on what that looks like. So exciting news on that to come. We did highlight that Special Olympics is really strong across our West Niagara community with 130 athletes in 8 different sports. Wheelchair tennis, of course, has been hosted in our community for about 3 or 4 years now, I think. Community Living, very strong partner and great programming. Also new for 2023, we do have a summer camp inclusion leader. And that's been a great thing. We've been in camp for about 4 weeks now, and we're really seeing the value of that position. Also just that we do have a Niagara Children's Center satellite here in the town of Grimsby. It's at the YMCA. Lots of great resources online, of course, Canadian Tire Jumpstart. We had some Pride events this year, so that's really great on the inclusion front. And new in 2023, the town of Grimsby also established their age-friendly committee. Also, we wanted to share a condensed list of opportunities. I think that's the most important piece, is that from this Inclusion Cafe, we wanted to ensure that there were some action items. And some of the things that we're working on is to consult with individuals that are most affected. So the concept of nothing for us without us. Looking at the new building. So I know Trevor and myself talked with Parasport today about going up to Variety Village to really make sure that we're getting out in front of that in terms of that new build to ensure that not only is it inclusive as a building space, but a programming space as well. Talking about partnerships and West Niagara approach. We're looking at some sort of 1 per month programming opportunities that really highlight inclusion, and our first one will be in August. So we're really excited about that. It will be with Community Living. Perhaps next month it might be with Parasport or Special Olympics. So just highlighting partnerships within the community and ensuring that we take and learn from that workshop, which very much highlighted the need for us to work together to be successful. So next steps is just to really further explore the partners in our community and what we as the town can do to be leaders in that area. And it was just a really great opportunity to meet a lot of great people and understand that we're not alone in this journey and that we can really collaborate and we can bring great things to our community. One of the further things we're looking to do is what kind of resources can we provide on our website? So how can we kind of, take that content that exists and share it with our community? Working with Sportball to perhaps run an adapted Sportball program, and that's hopefully coming probably not fall, but maybe in the spring session of next year. He's working to see what that would look like and how we facilitate it. And also looking at the LEAD process, which is run through the Ability Center in Whitby, and how they can support us perhaps in some of our policy development, those sorts of things. So lots of exciting things happening on inclusion, and I just wanted to provide you with an update and see if there's any questions around that. Thank you.
Thank you, Krista. Do we have any questions or comments from the committee? Yes, Member Bennett.
I guess it's no surprise that I do feel one of the most inclusive activities is swimming, because it's all ages, all abilities. And I do feel that could be addressed as something to look at is indoor aquatics for the town of Grimsby to service a very highly inclusive, a completely inclusive population, actually. That's all. No surprise to the people here. So, yeah.
Through the chair, yes, we've
Yeah.
been exploring not just our programming at summer camps is where we focus, but all of our programming. And I am happy to share as well that in our capital budget this year, we've had some delays purchasing, but we do have an accessible lift getting installed at the Grimsby Pool so that we do have a lift in and a new staircase that's a little bit more gradual. So we are gradually making steps to be more inclusive at the pool specifically as well.
And I know that there is a ramp as well that goes down to lake. I find that's very helpful. Some beaches have also mats as well, so, but I'm not sure how far you want to take that as well. That's more investigation. So.
Through the chair, I know that the Casablanca Beach redevelopment includes a beach mat in that space. So that's something to look forward to when that's done.
Perfect, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? No, okay, my turn. So lots of questions, lots of comments. I just comment on the cafe, that was great. I was there as well. Member Laird was there, it was awesome. Really appreciate that. And I had said before that I'm hoping that we have a list of names of all the people that were there so that we have a network later on when we need some more feedback. Yes?
Through the chair, I can answer that in terms of sort of our upcoming program that we're looking at for August. We were going to reach out to everybody that attended that session so we can share that widely and broadly across our communities and also open up that opportunity for further communication and obviously continued evaluation of some of those sessions so we can continue to meet the needs as they change.
That's perfect, thank you. Also, Coronation Park looking fabulous. When I drove by, the chairs, is that just today? Because I don't know if I just noticed them, but there were tons of people in those chairs today. It was fabulous.
Through the chair, yes, it was yesterday because I happened to be down there and the trailer rolled up and there was one that they had just put in at the concrete pad along the creek and there was already somebody having lunch. Like I think like the dusty handprints from the guys were still on it. So we're definitely seeing a lot of really positive uptake in that park already, which is really great.
Yeah, it's great. When I went by, like just before this meeting too, there were 3 ladies that were sitting there having a little chat with their coffees, I think. So that was really nice. A few different notes I had here. So Dunrobin Park, there was a mention of some hard court playing surface. Can you is this a pickleball court that you possibly have in mind, or a tennis court, or like a baseball court? Like what type of hard surface?
Through the chair, I'm not 100% up to date on the plan for that park, but in my experience, that would be a neighborhood park and wouldn't have an amenity at the scale of a pickleball court or something that's programmed to that level. I think it'd be more likely a passive use hard court for either basketball or light passive play. That's my best guess.
Go ahead, Councilor DeFlavio.
No, I'm familiar with that one, and the residents there have been asking for a basketball court. It would be, basketball, ball hockey, but I found that basketball and tennis together don't work because the tennis nets get in the way and basketball, it's two negatives rather than two positives. So it's either has to be one or the other. And I think that because of the community down there, I think basketball is probably the most appropriate. So it'll probably be a basketball hard court that goes in down there.
Perfect, thank you. And that's actually why I was asking, because in Ward 3 near, I'm trying to think, Olive Street area, there's that one with the tennis court and the basketball court, and I would agree, it's a bad mix. So I just was hoping that you guys would kind of point that out and also be cognizant of the area and like the neighbor, if there's a lot of houses right around there, I don't know if there's rules as far as when they're off the courts and stuff like that.
Through the chair, so for those types of parks, we normally say not until dusk typically, but they're not programmed in the sense of, if you're thinking the pickleball courts on Lake Street, that's where there's parking. We're encouraging people from across Grimsby to go and benefit from that amenity, where in Dunrobin, that's going to serve just that neighborhood. I think that's great feedback, Councillor DeFlavio, about, I think you're thinking of Escarpment Vista Park when you're thinking about how it doesn't work when you put a tennis net in, and feedback well taken, and I'll pass that along to the team.
Chair, for the one down there, that I agree with your concerns, because you don't want basketballs bouncing at all times of day when houses are around there, but it's literally the people that live closest to the park that have asked to have that basketball put in. Now, I suggested that there's a vacant parcel of land next to a water course just down the road there on Winston that's open, and that would be a much better place for basketball, in my opinion, because it's not right next to people's houses. But if people are okay with it, and that's where staff thinks it's appropriate, then that works for me too.
No, that works for me. Okay, so some of the other things I had here, the 2 Billion Trees program, I was hoping that we could get DSBN and Niagara Catholic involved and possibly reach out to them about educational programs, get the youth involved. And with the NPCA restoration, same kind of thing, reaching out and seeing if we can get the high schools on board for their volunteer hours. That would be great. A few more things. With the community project grant, I know it says that it goes to small local nonprofit projects up to $2,500 in value. Can you speak to like some of the organizations that have received this grant in the last year or two?
Yes, through the chair. So the intent of this program really is small project-based grants. So it's like, I have an idea and I want to carry it through, and I need like that kind of jump start to get it going. So actually when we bring the next intake to council, we will be providing updates on the successful projects that have been completed. A number of them were delayed, especially the ones from the first intake, because it was right before COVID, right in the heat of COVID, were delayed. So we are still seeing some of these projects continued. Just some example, the Grimsby Lions Club installed a pollinator garden, I'm thinking Nellis Beach Park. We had the Grimsby Pickleball Association was a successful proponent for kind of kickstarting their organization. We had, I'm trying to think, we've done so many of them. Oh yeah, the Rotary Club, they had the event in Coronation Park last year for Halloween, Grimsby Glows, and that was another one. So it's really about, we talked to all these community groups about who have ideas, they want to carry things through, and sometimes it's just that little bit, that $2,500 really allows them to kind of push something forward. And usually that's met with an investment of like their time and energy to carry it forward.
So these aren't necessarily organizations, or are there organizations that are included that are very well funded?
Typically, I wouldn't say that we would not fund a larger organization, but at this scale, typically larger organizations aren't kind of stepping up to the plate for $2,500. So usually looking for things that are a little bit bigger. So over the last 3 years, I've really just seen it's more grassroots, smaller community groups that we've seen take uptake. Nellis Manor actually was successful 2 years in a row to help with their marketing and some of their Christmas events. So far it tends to be smaller organizations, but there's no requirement based on organization size.
Great. And the ones you mentioned, I thought were fabulous. They did a great job. Nellis Beach Park, I was there today, was looking at the birds. It was great. I loved it. The filming, this is my last thing here. Actually, sorry, going back to the PKC expansion. So on here you said like some of the dates upcoming, August 24th, capital campaign strategy. I would like GDAC to be involved in this if possible. Sponsorship should be really a priority, getting that revenue going, and I think GDAC would probably have a lot of really good ideas. So Councillor Howe, you're also on that committee, correct? Okay, so maybe if you can note that and mention it, I'll keep an eye on the agenda, but that would be great if they could be involved. And lastly, the filming in Grimsby. So the clarification, do we actually have a filming policy?
Through the chair, yes, we do. It's very loose. Essentially, we will permit filming, we do work with filming, but it's mostly covering how people film on public property. And what we've seen now, and through this experience that we're just having with this actually started on private property. So they went and they leased 3 homes. And what we've kind of realizing is if we don't have the steps in case to vet things before they go and lease or procure private property, we're not really at the table at that early stage when we need to be, because there are other impacts. You go and lease a property in a neighborhood, now there's extra cars, there's a lot more activity, there's neighborhood impact that we really need to assess, and that's not what our program's currently built around.
Okay, so I was surprised by that because I thought that we would have had something, and I looked around and I noticed that Niagara Parks had something, and I kind of looked at some of the details there, and like it's $3,000 for 4 hours, you know, and then there's also other costs on top of that. So that's, if we have quite a few filming crews that are anxious to come here, then they should be paying for something. So I do actually have a notice of motion coming towards the end, just letting you know, but I think that's something worth exploring, so.
Through the chair, I absolutely agree. It's something it's been a learning experience for us. We went from, the odd time, and I think the policy served us well. If I can look back 5 years ago, I think I maybe permitted 1 or 2. We had the Hallmark movie, and if you come in for, 1 or 2 days, it's pretty quick and easy. There's some impact, and then they move on. But when you work with these larger scale productions, even the amount of staff time, and I can speak to this from my own experience, of kind of the consultation between the film company and residents and trying to find this happy medium where everybody works. If we're going to encourage filming, if we want to invite filming into our community, we really need to make sure that we're being intentional about how we're assessing that, how we're assessing community impact, how we're making sure that we're getting fair compensation for whatever impact happens in the community. So that's definitely something that we're working on.
Okay, are there any other questions from anybody? No? Okay. So we did have a mover and a seconder. It was moved by Member Bennett and seconded by Member Breather. So resolve that report DCS 2326, Community Services Department Information Update for July 2023, dated July 25th, 2023, be received for information. All in favor? Great, that's carried. Item 8.2, DCS 2327, Public Skating Programs at the Peach King Center. We have a report on public skating programs at the Peach King Center. Can I please get a mover and a seconder to put this item on the floor for discussion? Okay, moved by Councillor Howe, seconded by Councillor DeFlavio. And, okay, go ahead.
All right, would you like me to provide a summary of the report?
That'd be great, thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so the purpose of the report is to create a consistent public skating pricing for the Peach King Center. And just to provide a little background, I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with our public skating program, but we do provide 3 public skates per week. Currently, or from previous season, we had a 4 to 5 p.m. time slot on Thursdays, and that was a free skate. On Saturday, we have the ice for an hour and a half from 8:30 till 10, and on Sunday, we have an afternoon skate, probably our busiest skate, from 3 to 4:30 p.m. We do have council-approved rates and fees for those skates, and it's been the experience with staff that for the Thursday night free skates, a lot of people are quite surprised when they come to the counter that it is a free skate. There was some discussion in our team about making the pricing across the board and the times of the skates consistent. We also do have opportunities to further kind of enhance the background of this report with the Freeze Box, our outdoor skating rink for free skating. There are no fees collected for those programs. And we do provide special holiday skates, usually over Christmas, over March break, and those are typically sponsored skates, which we do provide for free. So kind of the recommendation of the report was that we were going to take the Thursday time slot and increase it by a half hour and looking to make that a paid skate. And sort of the financial impact from that is that the estimated additional revenue from adding the Thursday as a paid public skate is about $5,000 per year, and that would help with obviously our ice patrol staffing and whatnot. And this is just the added recommendation that if there are needs in terms of free public skating, we do feel that we're adequately meeting them in our sponsored skates, but we do have a funding program where we would provide for needs if there is an individual that required funding to attend a skate. So just the recommendation to create consistent public skating across the base and to take that Thursday skate and put it in line with the other skates. Any questions?
Councillor DeFlavio?
Thanks. I know that probably somewhere in one of the policies that child and student and senior are defined, but they're not here. So child, does that mean under 12? Does student mean like 13 to 18? Just little things like that, I think probably defining those would be important. The other thing that I would recommend is, I'm fine with charging for all the public skates at the Peach King Center. There are infrastructure costs, there are ice costs, there are all those things. What I think that we could do to balance that, though, is maybe provide outdoor skates that are more organized, because rather than just an open skate time, putting patrol outside on days that, on a Sunday between 12 and 2 or whatever times staff would feel are appropriate, just so that people feel like, because sometimes people are intimidated by the openness and the freedom, because people whip around and there's no kind of control. So maybe we might want to think about having a free skate, outdoor skate that is organized, not just between 12 and 2 you're able to skate. Because I know that those are on the schedule, but they're not, there's no skate patrol and there's no, as far as I know, unless I'm wrong, I apologize.
Through the chair, they are actually, as of last season. 2 years. Yeah, for 2 years actually now. And I guess they're maybe not seen as much, but we do have some public skate times and there is a skate patrol out there. So
It's been way better since we did that.
I will attest to that because our family uses it quite a bit, hockey family. But it's mainly, I would say, people that are hockey players that tend to use it. I would say most of the public skating is happening in the Peach King Center, right?
Through the chair, as opposed to the outdoor rink? It's growing, I think, to Councillor DeFlavio's point, and we had some pretty active feedback with residents over the years about the outdoor rink. I think it wasn't a welcoming environment. Because if you arrive at the arena or at the rink and there's 10 kids who are 14 playing hockey, do you really want to bring your 4-year-old out there and have to have a confrontation? And that was something we've wrestled with for quite some time. So starting 2 years ago, and this came out of COVID, we did start staffing those public skates, and we have started to see, so we offer less public skating time than we used to. We used to have these huge blocks of public skating that was never being used for public skating, and now we've actually just better defined those times and staffed them. So now what we're seeing is good engagement during those select hours, and then hockey most of the rest of the time.
Yeah, it's been great. I would also just like to add as well that that's one of the things that Grimsby does really well, and we don't charge people for, right? We've rented the surface, but there's a lot of time for public skating, and I would really appreciate if we could push that on our social media and really let people know that this is free. We put this out here and it's free and it's for the community, and we should really make sure that they are aware of that, because that's amazing. Does anybody else have any questions? Councillor Howe?
Through you, Chair. You showed the average skaters on the Thursday night, but then there was no mention on and you said verbally that the Sunday is it, but there was no number for the Saturday or the Sunday. What would be the numbers roughly?
Through the chair. It does fluctuate actually through the season. So I would say our busiest skate is obviously our Sunday time, and we roughly see usually an average of maybe 120 skaters maybe on a Saturday. The Sunday. The Saturday is a lot lighter, and I think it's obviously because of the later time frame. On a Saturday, we're usually around 35 skaters. So really our best attended would be the Sunday.
Any other questions? Okay, so I just had a few comments. I always like to compare what we're doing compared to some other municipalities, and I think Lincoln is doing a really good job in their recreation department. So I did look up the costs, and the costs are, and I would like to see our costs be a little higher on as you recommended, and they are a little bit higher than Lincoln, but I think that's needed considering everything's gone up. So and they do actually have a detailed outline for youth or 14 to 17, so I think if you look on their website, if we could kind of define that for people, that would be great as well. But yeah, I think that's it.
Through the chair, so I want to do a point of clarification on the outdoor rink. So it is not staffed during daytime hours. So the 9 to 3, that's when we consider open skate when children are in school. So that time it is a little bit more in flux. So we have done over the last few years is making sure we're programming holidays, PA days. We've gotten caught a few times on those days. But there are some times where you could see a public skater and a hockey player at the same time, and that would be during those non-prime hours when children are typically in school. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Okay, so we have a it was moved by Counselor Howe, seconded by Counselor DeFlavio. Resolved that report DCS 2327, Public Skating Programs at the Peach King Center, dated July 25th, 2023, be received, and that the Community Services Standing Committee recommend that council approve that the public skating admission fees within the current, within the current rates and fees bylaw be applied to the Thursday evening public skating event beginning September 2023. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Moving on to correspondence, there's none. Item 10, other business. So I do have, oh, yes, Councillor DeFlavio, go ahead.
Sorry, if there's other people, I'll wait. I had a procedural question because I forgot when we dealt with the minutes of other committees that come through this committee, there was a notice of motion. And I don't know if we need to discuss that here. It was a notice of motion regarding oak trees, and it was from the Grimsby Green Advisory Committee, maintaining the Grimsby tree canopy. Is that something that we need to deal with here?
Through you, Chair. You're very right. I'm so sorry that was missed on the agenda. Or wait, hold on a minute. No, that notice of motion is going straight through to council. Sorry about that. No, it was, it's been, within the motion, it was indicated that this motion be put on the council endorsement package for council to approve, because it is directing staff within the motion, and advisory committees can't do that without council approval. So that motion will be going through to the August 8th council meeting. Sorry.
No, that's why I asked, because when I see a notice of motion from one of those committees, I assume that we would have a discussion about it here. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, and I did send a letter to our director and to SEMA about this, was with the trail, the master plan. I tried to emphasize this at the last meeting, but unfortunately for all of you, I have more time in the summertime to think about these things. And I do want to emphasize with the consultant, and I do want to make it clear that a rail-adjacent trail is a very important part of the master plan. Whether it gets built or not, like I said to Mr. Trifinovich before, this is what we want to see happen. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. It doesn't mean tomorrow there's going to be suddenly a trail there. But if we want a trail that is adjacent to the railway, and I think that we do. I think that I honestly believe that Mr. Trifinovich, and the map talks about a spine. There is no better east-west spine, in my opinion, than one that runs either along the hydro corridor or the railway corridor from Grimsby from one end to the other. And if we don't include it in the map, then there is no chance of it happening, because it has to be in there in order for us to continue to pursue it, and for us to continue to ask staff to look into it, and for us to talk to CN. So, for example, I gave this example when I talked to Sarah about it. CN had a bunch of leaning posts. They're along the railway track, there's those posts that relay signals, and they were leaning for a decade. And I emailed them and I called them, and they never did anything about it. I went to AMO one year, and I'm not going this year. Now I regret not going, because I think that it would be you can have this conversation with them. But CN is always there. And I had one conversation with their representatives at AMO one year, and within a month they were out here correcting that. So it's not that they don't want to be a partner, and it's not that they don't want to participate. They obviously have their own interests in mind. They're a publicly traded company. It's, their safety is important to them, but safety is important to us too. And I really honestly believe that if we ever get a GO station at Casablanca, for example, that a trail that goes along the tracks or adjacent to the tracks, that is fenced off and properly built and graded and done properly, is going to be the best way for active transportation to occur. Keep people off the road. It'll allow people to take their bikes to get to that. So not just from a master plan from a trails perspective, but when it comes to transportation master plan, it's going to be important. So I want to make sure, and I want to emphasize this, and I want it on the record, that I think it's important that we put that in that plan. Whether it gets built or not is a completely other thing, but just like this Livingston Road thing, that doesn't mean it's going to get built tomorrow, but it means that we want to see it happen. And if we don't put it in the plan, I don't think it'll ever happen. So I want to make sure that that's written down on the minutes and that is noted so that way our consultant will put that in there. And it was a direction given to them by council. You might recall, like when they came to council, we asked them in writing to look at a rail adjacent trail. Council, as a majority of council, it might have been unanimous, wanted to see that happen. So I want to make sure that that is written in the document. That's all. I'm sorry for going on about it. As soon as somebody brought it to me, I thought it was a great idea. It's not my idea, but I thought it was a great idea and I want to champion it and continue to champion it until it actually happens. Thanks, Chair. And I'm sorry for taking up more people's time.
Any others? Councillor Breather, did you want to say anything? No? Okay. No? Okay, so I'm going to read my notice of motion regarding the film policy. Whereas the town of Grimsby has seen an increase in requests to film in Grimsby, and whereas the town of Grimsby does not currently have a film policy in place to detail expectations of conduct during the film production process, and whereas a film policy will also provide a fee structure to capture revenue for the town of Grimsby and any expenses incurred as a result of filming, and whereas a film policy has already been incorporated in neighboring municipalities such as the town of Lincoln, St. Catharines, and Hamilton, therefore be it resolved that the Community Services Department explore the film policy for Niagara Parks and Town of Lincoln and prepare a brief report with recommendations for consideration to the Community Services Committee on August 24th, 2023. I acknowledge that this notice of motion will be given consideration at the August 24, 2023 Community Services Committee meeting. Okay. So our next meeting, the Community Services Committee, has been rescheduled from the original date of August 29th, 2023, and the new meeting date is August 24th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. So we will now adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.